Hello and happy Monday, everyone. I'm Maddie Paul, and this is Inside the Newsroom. And behind me is our Falls Park live cam that you can look at yourself if you head to KELOLAND.com, go to the weather section, and then look at live cam. You'll be able to see all of those different cameras. But this is Inside the Newsroom. We bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we bring in our newsroom staff members to talk about these stories. And they're the same stories that you see every day on our newscasts and online at KELOLAND.com. Let's get started right away with one of our first trending stories. This was a recent Eye on KELOLAND story that you may have seen last night. Hunger and homelessness affects our communities year-round, but the issues have been more in the spotlight over the past several days with Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. Kelly Vogt checked in with some local nonprofits and their guests again in this recent Eye on KELOLAND story. And Kelly, to start off with, let's just give some context since I won't be playing that story right now. What organizations and nonprofit organizations did you speak to?
I went to the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, which offers shelter to people who are experiencing homelessness. I went to the Union Gospel Mission, which also offers that same service. And then I went to the Banquet, which offers free meals throughout the week.
And how did you get in contact with the people you interviewed for this story? Because something that struck me was that you interviewed a lot of guests at these different places. So how did you get in contact with them?
Yeah, well, I reached out to the organizations and I said, are you interested in this story? And they said, yes, of course. And then I said, is it possible, I could talk to some of your guests who are receiving some of these services? And they were able to identify some who were willing to go on camera.
Right. Does this happen often, being able to interview people who are at shelters or nonprofit organizations like these, or was it kind of special for this story?
Typically, when you reach out, they're willing to, try to find a guest who's willing to talk, because I really think that helps tell the story of, what these organizations do and how they make a difference. If you listen to a leader of the organization, of course they're great and they have great information, but there's nothing quite like seeing someone who's actually experiencing this and how they're being helped.
I completely agree, because one of my biggest takeaways from this story, and I believe someone that you interviewed had said this, was that everyone is at a different place in their life, and these places just exist to help people where they're at. And it was great to spotlight that during Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. So that was my takeaway, but what was something that you took away after creating this story?
Well, I think similar to what you said, everyone's situation is different. Take the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, for example. Some people might stay there for just a few days. Maybe they need to get their documentation first before they can start working. Some people may be starting from the ground up. They need to get into addiction treatment before they can even think about getting a job. And that person might stay for months. So everyone's at a different spot, and they just kind of have to start where they're at and work from there.
You even had one of your interviewees express a lot of gratitude and become emotional during her interview with you. How often does something like that happen for stories that you create? And what's kind of the balance that you go through there when someone does become emotional for a story, especially like this?
Well, it certainly depends on the story. If I'm doing something on construction, someone's probably not going to get emotional.
Yeah.
But these stories where someone is really personally being impacted, it can be emotional, especially, when you consider all the things they've been through. So, if someone's comfortable, sharing that on camera, and, I include it in my story.
How do you think that eye time that you had helped create this story and explore different elements between all of these nonprofit organizations?
Well, you can just show more layers and more voices. If your story is only a minute 20, which is what you typically see on a newscast, then, you're not going to have as much time to introduce people. But when you have, 3 minutes or more, you have much more time to breathe and introduce people to more people.
Right. Is there anything else that you'd like viewers to learn or take away from this story, Kelly?
I think you covered it well.
I think you did too. Kelly, thank you so much for spreading these details here at the digital desk. And everyone, make sure you watch Eye on KELOLAND Rewind tonight. Kelly's story will be featured on that show. And you can watch Eye on KELOLAND Rewind by stay tuned on KELOLAND Plus, because Eye on KELOLAND Rewind airs at 6:30 tonight. But again, that's only on KELOLAND Plus, where you're watching this right now. We just look back on a week's worth of Eye on KELOLAND stories and just revisit those stories in its entirety. It's a great time to look at, I believe, 6 different stories from the week. So you really get those long form previews. And stick around, everyone, because up next, we're looking at some big sports highlights that happened over the weekend here in the KELOLAND area. Stay tuned for more on Inside the Newsroom. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. It's officially time for football postseason, and USD and SDSU earned bids in this year's FCS playoffs. The Coyotes come in at the 11th seed and will play host to Drake. Watch Sports Zone All Access tonight on KELOLAND Plus for all of those details. In fact, here's a preview into that hype. This is the Coyotes' 3rd consecutive playoff appearance, but the first in the Travis Johansson head coaching era at USD. And he spoke a lot about just the standard that the Coyotes have in their meeting afterward, and also just when we were speaking with him, and how this is the first step. This is what everybody does, and that it isn't a big deal, really. He said what is a big deal is how they react and how they move forward in facing this Drake opponent, and that they're super excited. Drake is a team that like I mentioned, the Coyotes already beat, and they beat at a point in the season where they were coming off of losses to Iowa State and to Lamar, both on the road. They beat Northern Colorado in overtime, and then they saw Drake in week 4. So it was definitely an interesting point of the season for the Coyotes, and it'll be interesting to see just how much these two teams have evolved since that point in the season. Obviously, we've talked a lot about on this show that the Coyotes are a totally different team. They are a point-blank example of the reason why you don't win championships in September. And they showed that in very contrarian to what South Dakota State season has looked like, and we saw them play each other and USD come out with the win. So it'll be interesting to see how they look against Drake. Again, this is just a little segment, little preview that you could watch for Sports Zone All Access tonight. That is live at 3:30 Central Time on KELOLAND Plus, and then it's always available on demand right after it airs. So I'm on the website right now to show you how you can watch KELOLAND Plus if you're going to KELOLAND.com to do so. I know you're watching on KELOLAND Plus now, but here's a way to do it on the website. All you have to do on our homepage is just go to the watch section of our website, and then right under that section, the drop-down box, you can see Watch KELOLAND Plus right there. Hit it. Because once you do, you come up to this stream right here that says Watch KELOLAND Plus, maybe some ads, that's okay, deal with that. And then you can start watching whatever is live right there on that video player. And then if you're wondering, okay, what kind of show am I watching right now? What is Inside the Newsroom, or what is Sports Zone All Access, whether or not Eye on KELOLAND Rewind, what is all this? Well, if you're on this Watch KELOLAND Plus page, you can scroll down and you can see not only the program schedule, which is like amazing, but you can also see, if you keep going down, some descriptions of our original KELOLAND Plus shows there on KELOLAND Plus. And there's actually a lot of shows that we offer on KELOLAND Plus, so you can really learn a lot about what time Those shows air live right there on the schedule, and then also a little bit about what it is. Again, Sports Zone All Access is live today at 3:30 Central Time only on KELOLAND Plus. So make sure you head there tonight so that you could learn more about what's going on with the FCS playoffs. But we're actually not done learning about them here on Inside the Newsroom. Still to come, we're looking at how the battle-tested Jackrabbits become set for the playoffs. So stay with us. Inside the Newsroom will return after the break. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. SDSU football is in the FCS playoffs for the 14th consecutive year. This comes after the Jacks snapped a fourth game losing streak with an overtime win over North Dakota. Jordan DeSmit caught up with the team as they look to make another run at a national championship.
14-seed SDSU will host New Hampshire in the first round. The Jacks come into the postseason battle-tested with an 8-4 record.
We've honestly battled adversity since last December, and I think it's just enabled our team to grow. Every player, every coach, and I think we're at a point now where we can kind of flip the script a little bit. I think that adversity has built our team to be something special.
Head coach Dan Jackson hopes to have some key players return this week, including senior quarterback Chase Mason, who has been sidelined with an injury for about a month.
Chase is improving all the time, and he's doing more and more, and he warmed up yesterday to the best of his ability and was really close to giving it a go. I'd be confident that he'll be ready to play. That's where my gut is at right now.
The Jackrabbits have played a tough schedule and are one of 6 teams from the Missouri Valley Football Conference to make it into the postseason.
Playing the schedule that you play in the regular season sets you up for an opportunity to not be surprised by anything when you get into the playoffs.
And they'll need to be at their best for their first round matchup.
At this point, everyone's 0-0, so we treat it like a new season. We prepare how we always do, and then you go show up on Saturdays.
Playoff football, you need to be playing your best, and you need to coach your best too.
And Jordan DeSmit joins us at the digital desk to talk more about this exciting news. Jordan, what was the SDSU watch party atmosphere like before the announcement was made?
Yeah, it was a packed house. I think I'd assume all or most of the team was there and some Jack supporters, but they didn't find out where they were at or even if they're in the playoffs till like kind of later. And it was interesting because they, like you said in your intro, they beat the University of North Dakota, and North Dakota had a worse record than them, and they found out North Dakota made the playoffs like before they found out. So I think some people were in that room were a little bit nervous of like, oh, what's going to happen? But they ended up getting in, and they didn't have really anything to be nervous about.
Yeah, how did that energy change after everything was announced? What did you notice?
I mean, yeah, they were obviously really excited, and I think they're just excited to get in, right? They had a lot of adversity. Like they had a 4-game losing streak after starting 7-0, and so now I just think they have a fresh slate now, and you never know what can happen during playoff time.
That's the exciting thing about football, too, is you never know what's going to happen. But, during your interviews, what really stood out to me was the camaraderie and the excitement that's coming into this postseason playoff. So what stood out to you from your interviews with the team?
The biggest thing, honestly, was I asked their head coach, Dan Jackson, if their quarterback who's injured is going to play. And typically coaches are a little cagey about that because they don't want to give anything away to their opponents. But, Chase Mason, he's been out, like I said, for about a month. And that's when they lost their 4 straight games when Chase Mason was hurt. And so I'm actually really surprised to find out that there's a good chance that he's going to play. And who knows what can happen now with their starting quarterback back.
So what makes that such a standout to you? Just kind of the thrill and the excitement of seeing like what's going to come next with a decision like that?
I would say so, and just the fact that it might even change just the whole complexion of how the team feels about their chances too. Because I can't even imagine how the team felt during their 4-game losing streak. I'm a former athlete myself. I don't think I've ever actually had to experience something like that, thankfully, as an athlete. So I think maybe there's a little bit of, especially after their win Saturday, but I think especially now seeing that Mason could play. It's not confirmed yet. That there's a good chance of him playing. Maybe they're thinking, okay, maybe we can make a little bit of a run at this.
It's so cool because, again, coming off of that Saturday win, leading into this announcement like this, for you as a reporter, what makes you so excited to tell sports-related stories, even like these?
I love sports, and like I said, I'm a former athlete, so I'm never going to say no to doing a sports story. I do some play-by-play here for KELOLAND too, and I'm knowledgeable about it. And these types of stories are pretty easy for me to write, I would say. And I know how special sports are, and I know how special they are to the players, to the coaches, to communities, and things like that. So I'd love to be able to convey that excitement and tell just how excited these guys are.
Going off of that, this story actually continues to be trending online. There's lots of views going into not only for SDSU, but also USD. So what do you think makes local college football in the KELOLAND area so captivating, especially now?
I think it's interesting because I think really between SDSU and USD, which I should mention, USD made the playoffs too. If you watch tonight, our own Kelsey Denny, he's going to have a story about USD, so we're not leaving them out. They had a watch party yesterday too. Kelsey's going to bring you a story about that. But it's really interesting because you have kind of smaller communities in South Dakota, in Vermilion, and in Brookings, but you have just some high-level football around here. It's really quite amazing what both programs are able to do in this area. So I think also South Dakotans just have a lot of pride in their teams, and that shows with the support they give them.
And looking ahead to the run at the national championship, is there anything that you would recommend to our viewers to keep an eye on?
I would say keep an eye on North Dakota State. They are undefeated, and I think the favorite to win. They're a traditional power in the FCS playoffs, but keep an eye on them, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. I don't think STSU would have to play them right away, or USD. Well, I'd have to look at the bracket for sure. Don't quote me on that. But just,
going blind.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on,
keep an eye on that, and just it's crazy because it's the playoffs, and I think every team is in a do or die state, and I think some teams are playing with a lot to lose. Some teams are playing with nothing to lose. There's some teams that aren't seeded very high that are like, you know what, no one's expecting us to win, so let's just go and see what happens. And those are the teams that can be dangerous in the playoffs sometimes.
Well, Jordan, you're kind of switching gears tonight, exiting the sports world and entering back into a news reporter. So what story are you working on tonight for KELOLAND News?
Yeah, literally just got back from a press conference. Yeah, so an organization called Hungry Hearts, they announced today that they're going to match up to $100,000 donated to the Sioux Falls School District Angel Fund, which helps fund school meals. So you'll hear that tonight.
Wonderful. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming here to the digital desk with all these details about sports and also news. And everyone stick around for Inside the Newsroom. Still to come, we're looking at how a daycare in Brandon meets its childcare needs around the area and offers something unique to the experience. Stay with us for more Inside the Newsroom when we come back after the break. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Childcare is in high demand in cities across the country. Brandon, South Dakota is no exception. And its newest option, which is still in the process of getting off the ground, is something unique. Travis Fossing showed us Safe Haven Kids Care in a recent Eye on KELOLAND story last week. And Travis, for context, how does Safe Haven Kids Care stand out compared to other daycares we may see around the area?
Well, when you talk to the owner, she says that there's a lot of daycares out there that either cater to neurotypical kids, just your standard average kid, and then there's also daycare settings that have kids with special needs in them. But she said there aren't many of them that have both in the same location. And this is what that will have, is special needs kids, but also their siblings. If they're your neurotypical kids, they can join there. But you're just going to have a mix of kids.
So how did you learn about this story idea?
Actually, my wife found it online. She's part of a mom's group over in the Brandon Valley area and had come across this and mentioned it to me and thought, well, that'll be a good idea for a story.
That's so funny to hear because I think in your story, too, they also mentioned that same Facebook group. So it's just social media pays off in towns like this. But, why did you want to devote your time to creating a story like this? Because, and I say this for our viewers right now for context, with eyes, you have a little bit more time and time as in like your story can be longer and then also you have more time to create it. So again, why did you devote that time for this story?
Well, I wanted to find out from the owner, Christy Katzenmacher, just why she wanted to get this started, how it was going to work. But I also wanted to talk to somebody that works with her at the daycare and then also to one of the parents who uses the service and talk to a mom that has a 2-year-old with some developmental issues with things going on in the brain and she only trusts bringing her son to certain people, and her son likes Christy and will go over there and has been for a few years now. So
were the kids excited to see the cameras at the daycare then?
Oh, yeah, they had a good time with it, and we just told them to play. And
That's it?
Both the parents and the helpers and the kids, everybody just was playing, and it was a good time.
I was wondering what your game plan was for visuals. So you just asked them to kind of just do it your own thing, and then the kids were comfortable because they were just allowed to play?
And that was a big part of it, is making sure there were kids there to play. I mean, otherwise it's just okay, here's a house, and here's a daycare provider doing their thing. But just, always helps the look of the story when you have people actually doing things, and especially when it's kids.
Right, and
always
it's still
cute to
natural.
watch.
Yes, exactly. So what do you hope viewers take away from a story like this?
Well, just that this option is out there. Right now, it's in the stage of being respite care. So she does these fun days like once a month at this point, but also is willing to take phone calls if you're a family that has a special needs kid and you want a night off or need to get away. She's willing to talk and just to have those nights for those families. And then eventually this is going to become a full-blown daycare, and she hopes multiple daycare centers down the road.
And I bet it will help with that Facebook group.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how the word's going to be spread. Well, Travis, thank you so much for sharing all those details here at the Digital Desk. And everyone, this story will be represented on Eye on KELOLAND Rewind. That airs every Monday at 6:30 right here on KELOLAND Plus. So you won't want to miss the story now that you have so much context into how it was created. But that's all the time that we have for Inside the Newsroom today. I know it's very sad, but we will be back tomorrow, same time, live at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and always on demand on KELOLAND Plus. So until next time, have a great day, everyone.